Hydrastis canadensis. Of course, an herb of great fame. If an herb can be famous, Goldenseal definitely would be one of them. I remember when I was a kid hearing about Echinacea goldenseal, right? Everybody's always talking about that. Oh, it's this new herbal antibiotic, Echinacea goldenseal. Well, sure, Goldenseal has some antibacterial properties. Would I go so far as to calling it an antibiotic? Not so much. It's so much better than that. So Hydrastis, this is a classic North American herb. It's been used North American herbalism for a very, very long time. Of course, it was used by, everybody that lived here before the Europeans came to the Americas. And it's a fantastic remedy. This is, one of the herbs that contains probably one of our better studied herbal constituents of the modern era. It contains the alkaloid berberine. And berberine is present in a number of different medicinal plants, including herbs like Oregon graperoot, berberis, some Chinese remedies, coptis, philodendron. I have most experience with Oregon grape and Goldenseal, though. Berberine's being studied quite a bit these days. They're calling it whatever. They're calling it the herbal Ozempic. I think that's a load of garbage. I just don't call berberine that, please. And the herbs that contain berberine are not an herbal version of Ozempic. So if you're saying that, please stop saying that. It's just really not representing the herbs very well, and creating a false sense of what people a false expectation of a result people won't get using herbs. But anyways, we're talking about sinus infections here. Goldenseal, amazing herb. Bitter, bitter, bitter. The taste is bitter, a bit astringent, tonifying. We find that this herb, the actions that it has that make it really useful for a sinus infection is, on the one hand, it has this very antimicrobial property due to the presence of the alkaloids, of which berberine is one. Okay, there's many other alkaloids in berberine. I believe they're of the isoquinoline class. There's other ones. And this is one of the things where, people you can get isolated berberine alkaloid now and just, take it in supplement form. But lo and behold, it's very poorly absorbed. It's very quickly excreted. And it turns out that just taking a whole plant with berberine and all of the other alkaloids and all the other constituents is much better, because guess what? Nature put all those other chemicals into those plants with the berberine for a reason, affecting absorption, assimilation, and generally that principle that the term that David Winston used for, which I really like, is biochemical synergy. And that's exactly correct. That's exactly what's going on here. Same thing is true with turmeric, right? Curcumin is in my opinion, I think pure curcumin isolate's useless. I wouldn't even bother. Whole plant turmeric, way better. It's more effective, better absorbed, better utilized, often cheaper, just overall better to use the whole plants. So in that way, Goldenseal has a nice antibacterial effect, antiviral effect, and antifungal effect. Now, the antiviral effect, off the top of my head, I can't quite recall what the research is. Typically, when we say antiviral, I think it's very important to specify what kind of virus any research, because usually if someone's going to say an herb is antiviral, that's usually based off of, ideally, some kind of research showing the herb actually kills, neutralizes, somehow disarms a virus. And usually that's in petri dishes, so it's usually in vitro research, which is not our preferred form of research for herbs, to be honest. But just because an herb does that to one virus doesn't mean it does it to all viruses, because all viruses are very diverse organisms. So This is why there's no such thing as a broad spectrum antiviral herb or a broad spectrum antiviral medication for that matter, right? There is no such thing because viruses are incredibly diverse in their structure, in their genetic, even though they don't technically have their own DNA, but the way that they're formed, their underlying structure is highly different. Whereas bacteria, you can get a broad spectrum antibacterial, that's significantly more common. So, but Goldenseal is very useful for bacterial and fungal, which really when we're thinking about, especially more subacute to chronic sinusitis symptoms or sinus infection, that's usually what we're wanting to treat. Usually bacterial or fungal, usually the very chronic sinusitis, there usually is a fungal component. So Goldenseal is very, very good here, but that's more the allopathic thinking, right? Kill the bug, kill the pathogen. Very simplistic way of thinking about it. From more of a vitalist perspective or a humoral perspective, we want to think, well, what was the environment of the tissues that enabled that pathogen to even really begin to thrive and flourish in the first place? And so typically when we're thinking about sinusitis, not in all cases, but many cases tend to be hot, inflamed, damp, and relaxed or atonic. The mucosa are leaky. That's why you get postnasal drip, runny nose, just a lot of mucus, swelling, pressure, pain in the face, things like that. So in that regard, Goldenseal is really great here because it matches on the ecological side too. This is a cold, bitter, draining of fluids, draining of heat, drying plant. So it matches energetically very nicely. And then also this herb, really the main thing this herb does, from my understanding of it, is that it is like really the mucous membrane tonic par excellence, right? This herb is for leaky, soggy, boggy, atonic, prone to infection mucosa, whether that be in the sinuses, whether that be in the digestive system, whether that be even to an extent in the urinary tract. Berberine is secreted, is to a degree excreted through the urine. We typically think more upper respiratory, gastric, GI mucosa. Very, very good remedy there. Bitter tonic, mild astringent mucous membrane tonic. It's just going to really help. So when you wash that herb through the sinuses, it cools the inflammation and heat, gives a topical antimicrobial effect, and really helps to astringe, tonify, tighten up those tissues. Very key herb here. I've also used Goldenseal, not just in herbal neti pot, and this is something I mentioned in previous video on redefining topical herbs, but also in insufflators. So that like for nose sprays, basically, using like Goldenseal tincture in a bit of water with a little bit of glycerin in there, and you just do you can buy those nasal misters, you stick it up your nose and pump it and it sprays all up in there. That's a very nice way, pretty convenient way actually to do it too, because you just have your little bottle, whereas the neti pot is like, a little more involved, right? It's not something you can like easily do on the go. But those nasal insufflators are really handy to have if you have acute sinus infections. I mean, ideally you should just be kind of home, not running around all over the place. But when I had mine, as I told in the previous post, I actually had to travel at that time, and there was zero way I could cancel. So I ended up having to travel, and I put together an insufflator, but I also was doing the neti pot about 3 times a day as well. So anyways, so Goldenseal, good herb. It's a bit of an expensive herb, right? So, if you can't do Goldenseal, you could get away with another berberine containing herb like Oregon grape or berberis. The one thing I would say is that Oregon grape and berberis, in my experience, they don't seem to have as strong of a mucous membrane tonifying effect that Goldenseal has. But nonetheless, they do have very similar antiseptic properties, and they're bitter. They'll work on the mucosa a little bit, obviously, especially if you're applying it topically, like through a neti. Those will work well as well. And that could be, you could use that as a decoction, right? You could decoct the roots. Usually use the roots of most of these herbs. You could decoct that, put the salt in, and just use that straight up, and that'd be really, really nice. Since I was traveling, I was using the tincture.